Hey,
I
I
made
made
this.
this.
Hello and welcome to CHUCKYVISION, the podcast about child's play and the killer doll Chucky, here on the We Made This podcast network. My name is Mark Adams and I am your host for this very special episode of CHUCKYVISION, where we look at something that is odd. With me at this time, as always, is my co-host Dev. Hello, Dev.
Hello, as always.
But we've got a guest, Dev. We've got my housemate. We've got Priscilla, Queen of the Ring, joining us. Hello, Priscilla.
Hello, darlings. How are we doing today?
Very good. We just watched an interesting film.
Interesting is, it's a good word for it. It wasn't what I was expecting, I'll say that.
No. Dave, do you want to tell everyone what we watched?
We watched the 1987 cult classic,
Maybe.
Batteries Not Included. It was part of the audience poll.
It was. This was voted by our audience. They wanted us to watch this. Do you want to tell them the tenuous link it has to Child's playing Chucky?
I will. I will also say, given this is after our Dolly Dearest episode, when I say this was a viewer poll, that was not me saying this is your fault. The reasoning behind this was simply that in the very earliest days of Child's Play in 1988, when that was getting made, well, that would have been probably like 86 or something, I guess.
Pre-production, yeah.
Yeah, the original title was Batteries Not Included. And then this movie came out. So it was not going to be called Batteries Not Included anymore.
Yeah, well, this film is the reason why Child's Play was called Child's Play and wasn't called Batteries Not Included. And I thought it was tenuous. But the listeners voted for it, so we went for it. And we did it in my house. And Priscilla was here, so we roped him in.
Yeah, so thank you for voting for that experience, everyone.
So, Priscilla, normally we would do our What is your experience with Child's Play questions, which involves your favourite Child's Play film, your favourite Child's Play moment, and how you first encountered Chucky. But
It's going to be a very short conversation.
well, it is. You haven't seen any Chucky films, have you?
No, to my shame, I have not. I came very late to the horror game. You know, as a child, I was terrified of watching horror. I just had it in my mind it was going to be something horrifying.
Funny that.
So it was about mid-20s when I finally got the guts up to start watching my first rated 18 movies, and Child's Play just never quite made it onto my radar yet. I spent years going through the old VHSs you get at the charity shops to get my knowledge up on old movies, but Child's Play, for whatever reason, I guess people just wanted to keep it in their libraries. It never made its way into those charity shops, so I've never quite seen it. So you thought you'd introduce me to Batteries Not Included as an introduction this evening, which was...
I mean, it's not very much like the Child's Play films, I'll be honest with you. And I think we'll tell everyone now, we're going to have Priscilla back on at some point, because now he lives with me. I've roped him into doing an episode where he watches Child's Play for the first time and we get his reactions. And you can't see his face, but I think he's like saying, what have I got myself into?
Well, I thought that when we first moved in together, and we had to worry about the lack of internet for a couple of weeks. And I was going through the DVD collection to see what I could watch in the meantime, and it was just the entire collection of CHUCKYVISION plus a DVD special of Red Dwarf. So I thought, well, okay, there's not a lot of choices living with you, is there?
No. I know my niches and I like my niches. But the plan is to kind of get you to predict what you think each film's going to be before we watch it, and then get your reaction and how close you were and that kind of thing. And I think it'd be a fun little episode. We're either going to make it one big fat dirty episode that's like hours long, or we're going to record 7 little episodes and release them on a daily basis for a week.
But either way, I'm excited. I think it's going to be good. I've seen, Chucky come up here and there over the years in different bits of media. So I think I've got a bit of an idea of what's coming. That being said, I thought I had an idea what was coming for Batteries Not Included this evening, and I was wrong.
It's true. I realise we've done this out of sync. You haven't told everybody who you are and what you do, but this is me being super professional. I'm not going to...
Does it even matter? I mean, do people care?
Yeah, tell everyone who you are and how we know each other, I guess.
Okay, so I am a drag queen wrestler. I've been wrestling now for 20 years. I perform on wrestling shows as Priscilla, Queen of the Ring. And I guess over the years we've known each other just over the shows, haven't we?
Yeah.
Gotten close and just one thing led to another and here we are, living together.
Yeah.
Watching Chucky.
I know. And you're nice to my cat. I mean, what more could I ask for?
Well, and I haven't served my notice after watching Batteries Not Included, so now you know it's now you know it's for permanent.
Fine. Right, shall we get down to it? Shall we talk about the, surprising Batteries Not Included?
The 80s kids film, Batteries Not Included.
And we keep calling it a kids film. We've got the DVD in front of us. If people haven't seen it, I'm sure they've maybe seen the poster. Because the attention kind of draws you to the little alien fellas coming in through the window, I always assumed the light shining from them was on kids. And it's not, it's the old people who are the protagonists.
Yeah.
And so watching it for the first time, I'd never really seen this before. It did strike me that, one, it's kind of a kids' film, and two, there are no kids in it.
There are literally no children in it, not a single child.
The youngest person is maybe 28.
Yeah, the pregnant girl.
Yeah, there's no kids, no jokes, no happiness.
It was definitely marketed as a kids' film. I watched this in the 80s as a child, and I've watched it a couple of times since, but my memory of this film was not... Well, it wasn't as grim as this whole fucking film is.
And don't get me wrong, I was expecting it to be fairly grim. I mean, you look at the cover of the DVD, and it kind of reminds me of E.T. in the sort of style of the colouring and the artwork, and the fact that it's aliens. So
yeah,
I remember E.T. having its moments where I thought, I feel really sad, and as a kid, it was quite a harrowing experience watching it. But I wasn't expecting it to be all doom and gloom.
Well, it is produced by Steven Spielberg, and it was directed by Brad Bird, who you'd heard of.
No, it wasn't directed by him.
Oh, go on then.
Well, Spielberg was involved, yeah. The origin story of this was he has an anthology show, Amazing Stories, and it was going to be an episode on that. It was written as an episode on that. But he really, really liked the idea. And we do keep saying doom and gloom, but I mean, this does feel like Spielberg at the time, because Spielberg had already had a few big films by this point. I mean, massive films.
E.T.
Jaws, he was known for huge blockbusters. And he was known for, sort of unconventional, wacky plots that did really well. Mm-hmm. And then also, he became really well known for schmaltz. We keep saying doom and gloom sadness and all that, but it is look how adorable these old people are.
Yes.
And so it doesn't surprise me that Spielberg saw this idea and was like, no, you've got to really expand this into a full film.
And I think it's interesting that we're kind of going to be talking about how dark and grim this is. It's a PG, but there is basically no violence in it apart from one big boxer punch and violence towards property. There's no nasty, violent punchiness, really.
There's violence towards people's lives and hopes and their dreams.
True. And it did relatively modestly, actually. I wouldn't say it's a flop, but with a 25 million budget, it only made 65 million, which is kind of nudging on, you kind of did okay. I think there's a reason why there's not a Batteries Not Included 2.
We haven't even really discussed the movie in any detail yet, but it reminded me of how I described Spielberg at the time. It reminded me of the Spielberg Presents Gremlins.
Right.
That's a very weird original idea, but he liked it, so he put his backing behind it. And that movie did really well.
True.
this is an example of a story that he really, really liked, but, like, maybe he should have been a bit more involved in it, because I think for everything I do like in this film, it's a very hodgepodge, all over the place film. And I think that's the reason why it didn't do too successfully, because, I mean, the first 15 minutes...
very sad. Like, heart-wrenchingly sad.
The first 15 minutes of this film have no robots in it whatsoever. It's just getting to know the characters.
Yep.
And when the aliens do come into it, they just literally float in on through the window. It's so jarring.
Yep. There was no explanation whatsoever on where they came from, where they go to at the end. They just appear and get on with it. Which is really odd, because, like you say, they'd spent so long establishing the characters that these robots, alien, spaceship, cute things were going to say hello to. It did strike me as odd, yes.
Yeah, it's like E.T. and how E.T. worked a lot better, in that E.T. is a weird mix between a father figure, but also like a brother, like a best friend to Elliot, and how, so an alien and a boy meeting, it just works.
Yeah.
Like, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Throughout this whole movie, a lot of my notes are just like plot points, but then followed by a question mark. Like, so this is happening, and now this is happening? Like, it's weird.
It is. But before we talk about the film, I'm going to talk about the rating on Rotten Tomatoes. It got 67%. Do you both think it's fair?
67%.
Yeah.
So I get confused with Rotten Tomatoes because the ratings I see on there never seem to be remotely where I think they would be. Just so I'm really clear, is Rotten Tomatoes, is that meant to be an ironic term? Or is it like, do people vote Rotten Tomatoes because they think it's bad or because they think it's good?
No, it's just the name, I think.
So with Rotten Tomatoes, the way that works is, if a movie is, I don't know the exact one, I think if it's on a rating scale of 10, if it's 5 or under, it's rotten.
Right.
If it's 6 or above, it's fresh, or even 5 and above, it's fresh.
Okay.
So a movie can, I don't know, like the recent Ant-Man is getting very lukewarm reviews. I think that is actually rotten now. But like, if every reviewer gave it a 6 out of 10, which is a very average review, that movie is fresh.
Okay.
That would be a 100% fresh.
So does that mean that this movie is fresh because...
This movie would be... Yeah, about 40% gave rotten reviews, bad reviews.
Okay.
And then 60%, I imagine, were probably, I don't know, lukewarm, good reviews.
Just nostalgic and didn't remember.
Well, this is reviews from the time, I think, isn't it, Dev?
Yeah, a lot of the reviews on Rotten Tomatoes will probably be from the time. So yeah, this movie wasn't well received when it came out.
So I think, personally, 67% is kind of fair. It's not great, because it's so fucking grim. But I liked this film, I did. I thought it was a watchable, completely inappropriate for children film.
Oh, for sure.
It's heart-wrenching, it's fucking harrowing. But I think it's a good film. I don't know who it was made for and why it was made that way, but I think it's well done.
I think it definitely connects with you in the ways that it wants to connect with you, like especially those opening 15 minutes where you get each character established. Especially if you're an adult and you've lived a bit of a life, like almost every one of each person's tales has a little bit of a string that pulls on your heart. I suppose for me, I just wanted something that left me feeling a little bit more optimistic at the end, whereas it just kind of left me in the same place with each of them, which is why I'm feeling a bit grim. But it was actually a really pretty movie. Very, very beautiful.
Yeah, that is the thing that I'm grappling with. And I think, I was going to save this till later, but we brought up the Rotten Tomatoes score. I probably would agree, like a 6 out of 10, maybe a 7 out of 10. A lot of my points are going to sound negative because I'm going to be questioning the movie, but I do want to say up front that I appreciate a lot of what is in this movie and what they're going for. I really like that this is a quote-unquote kids film. And it is a quote-unquote kids film because, kids grow up with their grandparents.
True.
And this is a film for kids to be like, well, it's not a kid's story. It's like, hey, grown-ups go through stuff and grown-ups go through adventures as well. I can see how they're really aiming for something that kids will appreciate and also adults will appreciate. But as you said, by the end of the movie, it doesn't all come together. It's not a tight film.
It's missing that Spielberg bit of magic, isn't it, really?
Yeah, or at least just a Spielberg tightness. You know, like E.T., Jaws, Jurassic Park. They are, like, the script is just perfect. Everything plays off. And they say, like, Spielberg has overly schmaltzy films. People like, there was a lot of lukewarm critics of Jurassic Park. Like,
What?
people thought that it was over schmaltzy how they start the film and Sam Neill's like, I hate kids. And then by the end of it, he's like, I love kids. People
It's
think
a
it was
kids' film.
It's a story arc.
Fuck.
I appreciate that. I like that in Jurassic Park. It's, maybe simple as it is. I think that works because it is simple. You can follow it. In this, we'll get into it, but I feel like the storylines that the adults are going through don't quite line up with the aliens. Like, the aliens do stuff, but I'm not quite sure why they're doing stuff. There's a bit in it when they talk about miracles. Like, you don't question miracles. But then, what happens in this film, some of it is miraculous. But then over it, at times, it's just, stuff just happens.
Yeah. So can I bring up a really grim point? I remember the 80s quite well because I spent my younger youth in them. And the difference in time between now and when the 80s happened is not dissimilar to the difference between the 80s and the nostalgia at the start of this film for the 50s. I feel really old because this film is about old people who miss the 50s and they've got that fucking cafe where they try and make it look like the 50s, and it's about sad old couples with problems and holy fucking shit.
Well, here you are doing a podcast about the 80s.
I know, right? Do you think when they made this film 35 years ago, they were like, well, we can't make it too grim because otherwise 3 queens in the year 2023 will bitch about us on a podcast.
If they're going to do a movie about your life, like That's Just Not Included, instead of breaking up the cafe, they'd be breaking up your microphone.
I know, right? But I think the way the film opens is actually really lovely. I liked the whole black and white photos, the nostalgia, and then it brought the colour in when it was modern day, in inverted commas, it was modern day at the time. And I thought it was really stylish. I thought the music was perfect. And that made me look up who the guy is that did the music. It's James Horner who did Titanic and Avatar.
To parrot what I said before, last time, Dolly Dearest, the composer here, really pulling his weight at times.
Yes.
There's scenes where it's just nice, quiet drama, and it's played out, and then, again, almost to the point of making it more contrasting whenever the aliens are doing stuff.
Yeah.
Like, the music really plays a part there, and it really feels like a Spielberg film.
And that's the thing, isn't it? Spielberg's music is a very important part of the film. And 2 for 2 on Dolly Dearest and Splatters and Nods Included. Dolly Dearest had Mark Snow, the guy who wrote the X-Files theme, as its composer.
Really?
This tat horror film, 2 years before he wrote the X-Files theme. Right. And you could tell it was brilliant. And I thought the soundtrack to this was perfect. I don't think it could have been better for what they were trying to achieve.
Yeah, it's one of those films that instantly grabs into your nostalgia. Like those opening shots of the construction site where they're breaking up all the bricks and the walls. I just gasped right at the start, seeing that in the classic Technicolor, where they're showing off the colours essentially, because you've got all these bricks and dust flying, and it looks spectacular for its time. And again, with the music in the background, just makes you instantly think of that classic American skyline. And I immediately just went, I'm in a classic movie. Here we go.
And then grimness happens. It also opens with cigarettes. How more 80s can a film be than the main character having a ciggy to start the fucking film?
That's it, not villains, because we still see people smoke these days, but it's always the villain these days. It's so rare that you see a good guy smoking, and if they do, it's a real Marvel shot. It's almost ironic when they do it, whereas that's just, everyone's just got a cig hanging out of their mouth. It's the 80s.
Yeah. We have to talk about dementia. Because dementia is there very, very early on, and I think it would be wrong to not immediately say, holy shit, Jessica Tandy's an incredible actor. Wow, it could have been done so badly, so offensively. A bad actor playing dementia would be just unwatchable. Whereas the charm, the tragedy, holy shit, that woman, what an actor she was.
That script could have been dreadful. If they took the script for itself, as you say, with a bad performer or a bad cast around them, that could have felt really insensitive. It could have felt almost funny, but it felt uncomfortable in the first few shots. Then once you realised, oh, they're really committing to this and they are telling a very real story, it was no less uncomfortable, but it was just a magnificent performance.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating that they had a character with quite far on dementia in a kids' film. It's something that I think kids will encounter and may need to understand, but bloody hell, they did not pull their punches at all. The tragedy, the pathos, fuck. And as a kid, when I first watched this, I didn't get it. It was a slightly odd old lady. And I think the fact that that's how I saw it as a kid meant it did its job, because I didn't have anyone with dementia in my life at the time, so I hadn't got anything to compare it to or understand as a small kid, like 10 maybe. Whereas now, watching it again, I've had people in my life with dementia and I work in the funeral industry. I see what dementia does to people, not just the person with it, but also the families. I was welling up quite a few times about this because dementia's quite a big thing in my life these days, and I really thought this was so sensitively done, and they didn't pull their punches despite it being a kids' film. I was kind of blown away, actually. But it wasn't what I expected. I was expecting cute little fucking alien spaceships and old people with cafes, because that's what I remembered. I didn't get the dementia bit as a kid. And rewatching it, I'm like, holy shit, this film is so much deeper than I remember, and maybe it should have been.
I had to make a real adjustment when it started. I thought initially when she was walking down the road, I got a bit confused by the community having been just razed to the ground. I thought, this is going to be some uncomfortable jokes. And then about 5 minutes later, I thought, no, this is going to be an uncomfortable look into the world of dementia. And it got worse, and it got worse as it went through. But two things for me taken away. One, I was thinking all the way through as it went along, they're going to shoehorn some happy ending into this that's going to be offensive to people that have to deal with dementia. And I was quite impressed that they left it just where it was. No happy ending, no sad ending, just left that continuing, because that's what happens.
I was genuinely scared, because my memory of this film wasn't great. I was genuinely scared that they would fix her house and then fix her brain.
Oh, did you?
I was petrified that they were going to fix her dementia and have these fucking robots from outer space with a cure. That would have really made me feel quite
Actually, I thought it was more likely they were
nauseous.
going to fix Bobby, put him back together, and he was going to turn up and knock on the door like, hey, man, I'm fine.
I'm glad they didn't do either of those things. I think it would have been awful.
Well, I'm glad that having watched Hook at Christmas, I'm just glad they did it the way they did, because that was going to be my other point. Watched Hook over Christmas time, and I remember very fondly the uncle that's lost his marbles. But watching that back now as an adult, I felt nauseous.
Right.
Because as a kid, I didn't realise, this is dementia plot. And as I got older, I thought, it's just a funny old fellow. But watching it back, I thought, no, this was a really insensitive portrayal of someone's mental illness. And it was really refreshing to see that somebody rolled their sleeves up and went, nope, I'm going to make you feel every bit of this, and just dumps you into it.
And this was pre-Hook, wasn't it? This was before Hook.
I was going to say, again, Steven Spielberg.
Oh, of course it was, yeah.
Oh, shit.
Being really schmaltzy with old people.
Fuck, so Spielberg got it so right here and then fucked it up in Hook? What? Oh.
He had a bigger budget. He was selling out back then.
Fuck me.
I think maybe because the whole film isn't about fate, it gets a little lost in the shuffle about all the different subplots going on. But I do think, it was a very simple idea that the writers had. Like, these robots can come in and they can fix the building, they can fix all these little things, and they can make your life better, and they can, really help you out. But, like, they do and they don't fix the people. Fixing people is different. I think that's what they were really going for this kids' film. Is like, kids are probably wondering what's happening with their grandparents. Kids probably, grandkids have grandparents who are going through the same thing that Faye is. And so it's probably a good example for kids to be like, you just gotta try and be nice to them. You just gotta try and help them out.
I just felt that, particularly for the first half hour of this film, it was nothing but bleak. Kind of no hope bleakness. And that isn't my memory as a kid. I just remember there being this cute old lady, this artist guy that met a girl, and I think it's fascinating the way a kid perceives something. I think maybe you're right that this isn't a kid's film, because as a kid I kind of clearly read what I wanted to read from it rather than what was actually going on.
It's amazing that childhood optimism just blindly sees through, because the artist and the girl, I thought that was another heart-wrenching story, which again didn't get any real resolution, and I just felt really sad for every person that lived in that building.
Let's get into some of these other characters then. So, as I said, the first 15 minutes do explore everyone, and I kind of agree with the assessment of, it's a bit schmaltzy, because, like, when you say everyone has problems in this, there are some, like, pretty, notable problems. Like, Faye has her dementia, and Frank, he's going to lose his business, his life's business. You've got Harry.
Harry, the boxer.
Who he's basically Forrest Gump.
I mean, I put down in my notes, has he got brain damage from boxing?
That is
I thought was the subplot.
Yeah.
I thought that was the subtext.
I think there is a line somewhere. I think early on Carlos says something to that degree. That's why he retired early. So,
that's fucking grim!
So you've got Harry, you've got Marissa, the pregnant girl who, very early on, they established that she's waiting for her boyfriend who may or may not ever come back.
And I was genuinely surprised he came back, but I wasn't surprised he was a bell end when he did, because this film is bleak as fuck. The only one who's got, like, a bit of an okay life and he's a bit of a whiner is artist guy whose name I've forgotten.
Mason. And I was leaving him to last because Mason, I don't really think he has a problem. His girlfriend leaves him, but, like, there are some times during the... I think this film goes way too hard on some characters, like Harry and maybe Faye a little bit, where it's like, they're so sympathetic that it's like every scene with them is trying to jerk some tears out of you.
Yeah.
But then there are some weird scenes with Mason where I'm like, why are we on his side? Like, he's kind of a weird guy.
Yeah, he comes from wealth. He's chosen to be an artist. He's got... Well, his missus has run out on him, but
he's not a very good artist, let's be blunt.
That's true.
His self-portrait was cack.
Yeah, they seem to be with him, he's like the starving artist.
Yeah.
Then I also get that annoying vibe, like Rent, where he's intentionally... poor.
His girlfriend says at the start that he should go live back with his dad and sell RVs, doesn't she? So I think it's suggested that he's living on his dad's wallet while he fails to be an artist. I hadn't made the link that he was a bad artist, but now that you mention it, he is a dreadful artist. Like, they could have paid for a good artist to do good art for the movie if they wanted him to be a...
I genuinely wonder if the intent was to make him a bad artist or not. I just thought the art was bad, personally.
I imagine with this kind of film, when filmmakers always put artists in, it's always a little, even if unintentionally, it's a little self-reflective.
Yeah.
So it's probably, that idea of, like, never give up on your dreams. Like, always choose art. And it's like, no matter how much of a prick you become.
Devon, you are sat in a room with two people that have been in the wrestling industry for over 10 years. Don't be like making us feel so seen.
No, I agree with him. I think it's absolutely...
I agree with him, I just don't fucking like it.
But I think to your point though, it's not fully fleshed out. Like, I feel like with all the characters, there's a little bit going on with the writing where the writer knows a boxer, he knows a young pregnant lass, he knows an artist, and just assumes you're going to fill in that last blank with each one.
Because, plot-wise, Frank and Faye are really the protagonists.
Yeah, I think
Harry is like a Deus Ex Machina. He comes... they always use him for, like, miracle plot points.
True.
But then, like, Mason and Marissa, they're just sort of there. Like, what's the most important thing they do? They're always just sort of there in the scene.
You're kind of right, yeah.
The most important thing they do is look at art together for 30 seconds, and that goes nowhere either. So.
No.
And it's not to say that's bad, you know. I mean, I feel like I got started off with Mason on the wrong foot, or the film starts you off with Mason on the wrong foot. I do like a lot of the romance scenes between him and Marissa. I think they are good in that scene, but then it's like, there's so much going on in this film.
I do wonder if they're there simply to have a younger presence, because the main protagonists are clearly very old. I mean, even, you know, Jessica Tandy was old at this point, but I know she lasted quite a while after this, but she was clearly fucking old. And the boxer, Harry, well, he didn't say much, and I think it was just to get a younger presence in there, you know?
So you're saying that the pregnant waitress and the guy that like the villain from Die Hard were there to satisfy the children that had all come to see this children's movie that it absolutely was not for?
There was no children, so maybe. Not a single child. Even in the bit at the end where everyone was crowding round the rebuilt building, no children. Lots of 80s stereotypes, but no children.
Maybe that was for the best considering how grim the story was.
True, but did you see there was like a punk and a goth and all the fucking others? It was the extra work. Whoever's cast those extras, gold star. It couldn't have been more 80s with the extras that they put at that scene at the end.
One of every costume.
I mean...
Exactly!
I don't know if you guys know this, but randomly Luis Guzman was in the crowd.
Did you see?
Really?
Yeah, he was just one of the extras.
Brilliant.
He looked very young, but he was there.
Brilliant. And if we're going to talk about things that are very, very 80s, the 2 electrocution gags with the big hair, that's a very 80s thing. I don't think any film since the 80s has done, lol, everyone's hair sticks out a fucking mile when you get electrocuted.
Did you notice that the only men that were cast in that movie that had hair, they specifically cast men they had hair that was big enough they could beef up for? All the gents with no hair made it throughout without any electric shocks. All the guys that had hair got electrocuted.
Should we talk about the Carlos character?
Every time he came back, I was surprised that we're still with this guy.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to be a one and done mini villain at the start. He has more to do in this film than Mason and Marissa do.
Yeah, you're right. And also, I guess his face turn needed him to have more of a presence than you thought maybe he would have done. I mean, again, going back to how tragic and how painfully grim this film is, his face turn is ruined by Faye remembering that he isn't Bobby and putting the flowers in the bin. Holy shit, my heart broke again for the bad guy who'd face turned.
That's the thing I didn't understand with Carlos, because there's that scene about midway through where him and Faye have dinner and she asks him out for ham. And he starts to smile and they almost flirting. I mean, he's outrageous.
He likes ham, clearly.
Well, he definitely likes something, but they're chatting away. And they're getting on, and I thought, oh, Carlos has become really likeable. And then you start seeing those scenes where he's at the big corporate offices and he's trying to impress the bosses and you feel a bit sorry for him and you think, oh, bless. Well, he's going to come back later and he's going to save the day. But no, he comes back later to raise the building and blow it up and has a weird fight over who's going to be the most evil. Like, he just does... To me, he ruins his chance for a face turn because he continues trying to be bad for so long, so pathetically.
Yeah, he is bad for like 90% of the film.
And he's bad at being bad too.
It's the same. It's kind of the same with a lot of the characters, like Faye and Harry, where I really appreciate what they're trying to go for. It's a very complex character. You get these lines where he talks about like he never knew his dad. And, like, he's just trying to get out of here, get out of the slums. Because he doesn't live in the apartment. He lives maybe in one of the wrecked buildings.
Yeah.
He might even be homeless, maybe. But, like, yeah, you do get this real complex character. And then, like, because there's so many characters, he just tends to come and go. And his his finale at the end seems very unresolved.
It's just very 80s, isn't it? It's a very 80s plot about trying to achieve the American dream or trying to match what your parents did in this country. I think there is a difference for British people who are a certain age, like, let's be blunt, me, trying to match what the boomers achieved with an easier ride and not managing it is hard. Going to America and not achieving the American dream is hard. I think it really did kind of capture how tough it was to be young in the 80s and trying to do as well as you were expected to do in an economy, in a world that didn't make it as easy as everyone seemed to think it was.
I definitely got a big sense of that when he says about getting out of the slums. That's when I suddenly had a real pull towards Carlos. But again, like with so many other points in this movie, I felt like it was missing a writer to really tighten it up. I felt personally if they had dropped Mason from the script altogether and had Carlos fill the spot, because he had a little bit of flirting with at the start. I feel like a smoother resolution would have been Carlos to have saved the day at the end, gotten with the nice young lady so he can raise the child because he's a good lad, not like the horrible boyfriends, and then done some clever business thing to make sure the building carries on the way it does. Because that's also unresolved. It's just they put the building back up again. It's like, oh, yeah, it's fine. But, like, Carlos wanted business acumen. Like, there was a story to be completed there, and just like so many others, he didn't get a completed happy ending that left you going, that's what Carlos is doing with the rest of his life. Just some poor guy with burned hands standing in a hallway with no flowers. You just kind of feel sorry for him.
Yeah, it was kind of... I bought the face turn, I think I genuinely did, because I think you can be evil, 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 holy shit, I'm about to murder an old lady by mistake. I think that would kind of shock you into questioning what the fucking fuck you're doing. So, yeah, I bought the face turn, actually.
Because it did make sense within the film that, you know, he was not out to actually hurt any of the people there. And we got that vibe. I mean, he comes across quite violent at the start when he's smashing the place up.
Didn't hit a person though,
but
did he?
He didn't, no. And it does get quite clear as the movie goes on that he's not trying to hurt anyone. So, yeah, the face turn is kind of believable. But again, it's just that as decent as that was, and I like the scene in the hospital where he's not Bobby, but then at the end, you know, it's not his apartment. So he's just standing there, and it's not quite it's not clear at all what he's going to do.
Nothing fucking happens to him. He's actually more fucked by being a goodie. And that's kind of sad. And it's a kid's film. He should get a reward for his face turn.
Like you said, there should be something missing here. Like maybe just even at the very end, like he's like the busboy now in the diner.
Yeah,
like he's working there.
Yeah, he's going to take care of the community then now that he's realised the effects.
Like literally just like a shot of him.
Frank should have given him a job.
Yeah.
Yes. But they
that
didn't.
would have been so heartwarming if Frank gave him a job, and he could have.
And he didn't.
Oh, fuck you, Frank.
So I think I want to move on and talk about the special effects, because I genuinely thought they were great. I think for a film that's 35 years old, you can tell some of it is kind of green screeny, but I've seen much, much worse from films made 10, 15, 20 years later than this. I think you can tell that there was some care and effort, and it was right on the edge of the combining of green screen and prosthetics. Can we call it prosthetics if it's electronics? I don't know.
Models,
yeah. Yeah, and I think it was... Yeah, I think it's brilliant. And I think a lot of modern stuff that relies too heavily on CG could probably learn from this, actually, because a lot of it is fucking brilliant.
Oh, it was the golden age of special effects for me. And it's a magnificent example of them. Anybody who's seen Shark Boy and Lava Girl will appreciate the love and passion that's gone into the special effects here, because you can tell, like, years of somebody's life went into that movie.
Yeah, the effects are really good here. And more than so, they're good, because, yeah, you can tell they are blue screen, maybe, or superimposed in.
Yeah.
You can tell they're not really in the scene, but the model work, the model work is really intricate. There's a real sense of life to these robots.
Yeah.
They get it across really quickly. It's that same difficulty of E.T., where E.T. is quite alien. And you just need little details like the eyes to make you connect with them. And it's the same thing with the robots. Like the sequence where the two little ones, the two kids, are learning to fly.
No.
There is so much emotion, not like heart-wrenching emotion, but there's so much like personality put into the different ways that they learn to fly, like holding onto the edge, or when the second one is falling.
Shit flappy wings.
Yeah, the little wings that come out, and then you have the little umbrella. Like, there's so much extra attention put into this.
Yeah. It feels like this film had a lot of love put into it. And I think if I make this comparison, and I do it a lot, if there is a non-human character that is as cute and lovable as the Pixar lamp, then I think they've done a good job, because the Pixar lamp is perfect. It is like an achievement in making an inanimate thing the cutest thing possible. And I think this managed to be as cute as the Pixar lamp.
Do you think part of the reason you thought they were cute is because they kind of look like the Pixar lamp?
Well, the Pixar lamp looks like them. Because this is pre-Pixar lamp.
Do you think that's where the Pixar lamp got its originations from?
No, but I think the guy who invented the Roomba needs to be paying loyalties.
That's true. I will say, when they first came on, I immediately just sucked in my breath, because the first thing I thought was that robot thing that flied around in Flubber. That used to be really irritating.
Yeah.
Do you remember that old Robin Williams movie where he was annoying, Flubber was annoying?
I was too old. I was a teenager by the time Flubber came out.
Oh, there's this little flying Roomba, and it's like, that film is like ADHD, annoying kids writing, where every single character is trying to be more nauseating than the last one. And I was expecting this really cartoony, oh, hey guys, let me fix your lives kind of voiceover. I was delighted that there was no dialogue from the robots. They were just there to fix inanimate objects round the building to serve no real purpose, really.
And you never really knew whether they understood English or Spanish or not. They kind of seems to just imply that they behaved towards the people the way they behaved towards them. They matched kindness with kindness rather than actually understanding what the fuck was going on and what people were saying.
Yeah, getting to grips with exactly what they were was a little challenging, but I do think, on a rewatch especially, that it is pretty clear. They establish early on, like, they are literally living in a pigeon coop, and, like, Faye is feeding them nuts and bolts, like birds.
Adorable.
And you're right about them fixing things. Very early on, they established that they fix things. And I was questioning the first time watching it, like, keep seeing the state of the building, like, there's the wallpapers, the beams are exposed, and there's broken things here and there, so why aren't they fixing everything? And you do get the sense that they are fixing things that people, it's almost a little magical, that they're fixing things
that matter to the people.
Like Mason's door or Marissa's saint statue.
Yeah, or the cafe.
At the end. Oh yeah, the cafe, yeah.
And I guess that's kind of like established that they only have a limited amount of time, because then at the end they have all the fucking spaceships to rebuild the whole building. They bring their mates, essentially. And I think that made sense. They had a finite number of resources and they did do what was most important to each person.
Did they really have an overarching story arc, though? Because I felt like they were props throughout the film that didn't really have a purpose.
That's what I meant about how odd this movie is, the parallels of their story and the humans. They're like birds, they're animals in a sense. It's pretty clear that they come down to roost, they have babies, and then that's it. Mason even says, like, what happens when they have kids? Then they fly away. And they do fly away.
Yeah.
And so it is sort of arbitrary, the way they say, it's a miracle, and there's a reason they're here. They're here for me, or they're here for you. And they're not really here for anyone. It's just nice that they helped out.
I feel like their story was more like their pigeons. They turned up to roost one summer, they laid their eggs, had their babies, that they flew off and came back the year later with more.
I think there was a kind of problem there, that they were more intelligent than an animal, but they were quite animalistic. If you were that intelligent that you could go and get all your mates to come and fix something and convince their people to help these other people, that is much closer to being a person than birds who knock their chicks off a ledge to teach them to fly. So there is a contradiction there. I think you're right.
I'd like to think that all of the birds went off to their separate pigeon coops and had their separate robot babies, and then at the end of the summer, the ones from this particular house flew around and went, oh, now everybody's up and flying. Our lot are really miserable. Come and check them out. And they all just came back and helped them out. Because it's the saddest block in in America, surely.
So, is now the time to talk about spaceship shagging?
Well, we touched upon it just then, but yeah, there is a whole...
They shag like butterflies?
Yeah.
What, if the butterflies set a shed alight with electricity, would it happen?
Yeah, but you know what I mean? Like, butterflies kind of like fly around each other and bounce off each other. They shag like butterflies, and I think that was deliberate. I think that was a deliberate choice by whoever created these spaceships. These are going to shag like butterflies. In a kid's film.
It's not research I've ever done. But
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole Cars dilemma, isn't it? Like, I remember when I read an interview with the animators of Cars, and in the script, there was a moment where they're in the desert and they have to figure out where to go, and the script just says, like, Lightning McQueen pulls out a map. And then the animators got that, and they were like, how the fuck does a car pull out a map? From where? With what? How does that work? And they had to think of like 20 different reasons it would make sense to do. And I think they decided they were just going to go for the simplest idea. I can't remember what it was, but they went with the simplest way that people would understand, oh, there's a map. And it's kind of the same with this. You don't want to think too deeply about it. And it's like, you get one shot when Mason looks inside the robot, and it's like really, really advanced.
That was cool,
really
actually.
cool.
That was great special effects.
And that's it.
Yeah.
You don't get any more explanation of how any of this works. It just, it's a different being. That's just how it works.
Yeah. Carrying on with the reproduction theme, did you expect a fucking stillborn in a children's film?
just when I thought that film could not get any more grim.
Fuck.
It's the first moment in the movie where they give you a nice, warm-hearted moment where you go, "Oh, robot babies, that's..." Nope, okay.
Stillborn.
That warm feeling is shattered with an ice-cold blast.
Do you know what? We have done 2 years of a horror podcast, and I genuinely think the most horrific thing I have seen in anything we've watched in our entire run on CHUCKYVISION is a stillborn baby.
I do think after watching that the first Child's Play movie I watched would be far more enjoyable in terms of like, just fun and happiness compared to this, because,
A stillborn baby in a kid's film? What the actual fuck biscuits? I'd completely forgotten that. I knew there were babies from my memories of watching this. I even watched this film maybe 10 or 15 years ago for a lol nostalgia thing while I was in my 20s, but I had forgotten there was... I'm glad I'd forgotten there was a stillborn baby, because fuck me, stillborn baby is the most grim thing. I thought dementia was grim, but no, let's have a stillborn baby on top of dementia just to make this children's film that even... I'm ranting. But it's really fucking bothered me. I thought I was having a nice time watching spaceships and old ladies, and it's dementia and stillborn babies. Fuck this film.
But that's what I was getting though, because we'd had a bloody 45 minutes of dementia, of the heartbreak of your wife.
Don't forget the brain damage boxer.
Yeah, the brain damage got to the single mother, the artist who's just lost his girlfriend, everybody living in a house which is getting floored by the rich man who doesn't care, the young lad who's trying to prove himself by breaking your home, as if all of that couldn't get worse. Oh, we've got a nice happy moment of family values, and there's a stillborn as well. Deal with that. And the next scene is them holding a funeral for this poor thing as well. Like, they still keep going with it.
Yep. Oh, and don't forget that the brain damaged guy steals the stillborn baby.
This is what kind of confuses me about this.
Sorry, grave robs. Doesn't steal. Grave robs the stillborn baby.
This is what confuses me, because as dark as it is, as sombre as it is, like Faye and her dementia, I can understand why this isn't a kids' film. You know, your kids have to grapple with serious things, you know, in real life, and maybe a film like this can help introduce them to it. This is the same thing where kids need to, you know, learn that not all kids come out, you know, fine at the end. And I was on board with the film, like, oh, this is a somber moment that, you know, even these robots aren't perfect. But then Harry brings it back to life, and I'm not sure what the film is trying to say with that.
Me neither.
There's no parallel to that. That doesn't happen in real life. So
No.
what are kids supposed to learn from that?
It was weirdly out of place.
I think you're right. I think it should have either been a stillborn baby or immediate kind of resuscitation on the spot.
Yeah.
Rather than what they did, which was stillborn baby had a fucking funeral, weird boxer dude who may or may not be brain damaged fucking grave robbed it and then did some wacky science to resurrect it. I don't know what they were trying to achieve. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, two genuine criticisms of that were, one, aside from him putting tiles on the ground in a sort of autistic way, at no point established that he knows anything about electronics, so I don't know what he's even attempting. And then the second one is, yeah, like you said, if he grabbed it, ran down the stairs, and they were like, what are you going to do with it? And then he, you know, I don't know, just electrocutes it and then fixes it.
Yeah.
Because there was a point where they needed to get the power back on, and he sticks the trowel into it, and I thought he was going to do something like that, you know, like stick the baby in, and then it wakens up. Weirdly, though, in the film, though, he runs down the stairs, and they're like, what are you going to do with it? And then he just goes to the next scene.
Yeah.
He has the stillborn baby.
And they're like, oh, let's open the cafe.
Yeah. It moves on from that idea for like 5-10 minutes before we get back to the baby.
Let's open the cafe. The parents of the stillborn baby don't seem to care. In fact, one of them threw cheese onto his own child and put it into a burger. And just, it could have been so better written. Which is really frustrating because the sensitive way they deal with dementia is exceptional and really should be praised. But I don't feel like they deal with stillborn babies in a good way at all. Lol, let's make the robot a burger. In the very next scene.
Now you're ruining the burger bit, because that was one of the only moments of pure joy.
Oh, it's brilliant! It's brilliant! In fact, when I was promoting this on Twitter, the only GIF on Twitter from the entirety of Batteries Not Included is when the cheese lands on the...
I'm not surprised, because what's the other GIF going to be? The stillborn dropping out. There's no other moments to use.
Just a all-purpose gif of Faye burying the stillborn.
But yeah, there's only one GIF on Twitter and it is the little baby spaceship getting cheese dropped on his head.
I would have liked a gif of the baby in the burger running about.
No GIFs, just that one GIF.
The burger, of course, runs away.
Yeah.
And then he just takes the burger from the guy next to him. Now that guy doesn't have a burger.
Well,
But
no,
he's
I
fine
think you
with that.
assumed the other guy nicked his burger.
Yeah, but then that other guy, he just sits there. He's like, alright.
I think it's meant to be insinuated that the gentleman who has his burger run away and then takes the burger is meant to be the big alpha male in the cafe.
Yeah.
But that's very poorly represented.
It still sucks there, the guy has no burger. And then I noticed, did you notice the little joke when Carlos comes in and Faye is like, let me get you some food. And she takes food from that same guy.
Yeah, she does.
He gets his food stolen twice.
That guy is hungry.
And he just sits there like, yeah, alright, I'll keep coming out.
After a certain point when everyone keeps taking your food at the cafe, you can just give up and go, fine, it's not mine anymore.
So I want to talk about another part of the plot that really fucking irritated me. Frank was like, you used to be a boxer. He was a boxer. He was a boxer. I bet he was a boxer. He was a boxer. Did I mention that he's a boxer? Is the boxer going to punch the bad guy later on in the film? What do we think, guys? Ugh.
That's when you know it's an 80s film.
Yes.
When the screenwriters are like, this is a kid's film, and the answer is violence. Like, when a bad guy is troubling you, you just beat the fuck out of him.
Have you seen Home Alone? That's the answer to every kid's film.
It is weird, because I was expecting, like, one punch. You know, like that theatrical uppercut he does.
Yeah.
I was expecting something like that. No, he grabs Carlos by the collar and hits him in the stomach several times.
By this point, Carlos is far too likeable to be getting that kind of punishment as well. He has that hopeless flurry into his gut that doesn't do anything, and you're like, Carlos, you're gonna die. And it's not just, as you say, like a comical whoop, like Jazzy Jeff out of the front door. It's I'm going to ruin your ribs. You're not going to breathe for the next week. Get out of my house.
Yeah.
But then it's like, it's the same as the birth scene. In that, it's like, oh, it's this big moment. And he even smiles, which is kind of weird. Like, does he know what he's doing when he's smiling? Like, it's a bit weird that he's smiling at the violence.
Yeah.
But then also, the moment is complicated because then Faye thinks that's her son getting beaten up.
Oh, yes.
And it's like, oh, he's supposed to feel like there's so much happening.
And
I don't
then
think they have a clue what it is. It's just feel.
And then it does go into the reveal of what finally happened to Bobby, that she's confused with Carlos for the entire film. Bobby's dead.
You guys had this conversation during the film when Bobby kept getting mentioned.
We both predicted something different. I think you were quite... Bobby's just gone away. Was like, It's going to be something grimmer than that.
I was under the impression that Bobby had just left because it was a really grim, sad, big kind of story going on. But I'll be perfectly honest with you, and I feel embarrassed about this. I hadn't actually realised at this point that Faye and Frank were married. I was under I thought the dementia was so bad that Frank wasn't her husband.
Oh,
and he was
okay.
cackling with that too. So I was very much dealing with a whole different story going on during the first half of that film before I clocked it.
Right.
Oh no, Bobby's dead. That's the tragedy. I thought the tragedy was that everyone had left her, including the husband, and this poor guy is helping her. Just
wow.
Yeah, I was even more invested in the wrong stuff.
Wow.
Up until the death, at which point I felt cold on the inside. I went, oh no, the son died in a car accident. Frank has to deal with that every day while she goes around calling everybody Bobby.
Yeah.
That is also probably worse.
Just as a little side tangent there, I just want to say, I can understand your confusion at the start because there are other characters introduced, other old people, but they leave within 5 minutes.
Oh yeah.
And then that's another little touch of sadness.
Yeah.
That Frank and Faye, the only people here, all their friends have moved away.
They were helping Frank with Faye and then just dumped that shit on him, and I guess that is their prerogative, but holy shit, that was kind of cold.
Because that's what happens, though, isn't it? That's the sad thing.
Yeah.
I speak to people, and I'm so aware that I'm hurtling towards this age myself now. But I remember something.
You're like 33.
No, but these are the kind of age where things happen, where like you're in a community and then say you lose a partner or you lose a loved one and realise how little your friends are actually there for you when it happens. Like, yes, this in the story is happening much later. You know, someone comes along and says, do you want some money? You're being evicted. But again, Frank and Faye had relied upon the friends in the household to live their life. And that's how Frank managed his life. Just not anymore.
That is something I was thinking with, again, the parallel between the aliens and the humans. With the aliens, we've talked about how they're birds. You know, they come down, they roost, and then they leave. The part of the message, near the end, the part of the message is Harry when he holds on to, his baby, the one that he likes. Which I think is, I don't know if it's the same with birds, like run to the litters. It's kind of like that what they're going for.
It's definitely a run to the litter vibe, yeah.
Sure. But the message of that, the whole message of that is that, no, you have to let it go. You have to let them move on. They're here for a bit and then they move on.
But it's fucking heartbreaking on another fucking heartbreaking storyline with another fucking heartbreaking storyline with another fucking heartbreaking storyline. The whole thing, it's just like everything is sad, but there's cute spaceships. Shit a brick, this film.
To me, though, that conflicts with Frank and Faye's story where they have friends who move on onto, a retirement home.
Yeah.
And presumably they're happy. But, their story is then, no, we're not going to move on. We're going to stay here. And then they get their magic wish at the end, that they do get to stay here forever.
Being brutally honest, the stage of dementia that Faye is at, having dealt with a lot of people as a funeral celebrant where their partner has died through dementia, Frank should have taken her to the home at the very, very start.
Mate, the film was dark enough as it was without you adding responsibility and saying Frank's a bad husband too.
Well, there's a point, because at the start of the film, she's wandering around.
Yeah.
And she doesn't know where she's going.
She needed more support than he could give her. And that was clear. And yet the happy ending was that they got to live in their own home when he should have made the right decision on her behalf. Yes, it's even grimmer than we thought it was, Priscilla.
Oh, but don't forget though, when they play music and she's working as a waitress, she's smiling.
That was beautiful. And it was a perfect depiction of dementia. And I wasn't sure I was going to tell this story, but I think I am. I used to work in a library where there was an old folks home on top, and there was a lady there who had very serious dementia. Her son lived with her as her carer, and he would bring her down. She would sit in the library, and it was like there wasn't a person inside her until kids interacted with her, and she just woke up. It was like you clicked your fingers, switched the light on, and the lady was there again because she loved kids so much. As soon as the kids went away, it was like you kind of drew your hand across her face and there was nothing left. And it was desperately sad. But the fact that that lady lived above a library enhanced her life. And I think there is a truth in what you're saying, that having that cafe, having that music to kind of like click your fingers, the thing that reminds her of who she is. Fuck, that was beautiful. That was perfect. That was so well done. Like, heartbreakingly well done. Because I've seen that kind of shit when it comes to dementia, and it really is just a case of put person with dementia in right situation, and it's almost like you switch them back on.
Well, that's what I understood why Frank was fighting so hard to keep his cafe. You know, he's married to his wife who doesn't really remember him on the most part, is obsessing about their dead son. The one time that she isn't doing any of that, and the one time she actually looks happy and is living the life as he remembers her, is when his cafe that he built, he built this business that keeps his wife on this planet. Like, to give that up and go, I'm going to go in a home where you won't remember me within 6 weeks.
I genuinely wiped a tear from my eye when that scene happened, and I'm like, fuck. I really just expected old people and spaceships and kids film. That is not what I got. I don't think I was ready. And this film is not what it should be, but the more I think about it, the more I like it. I don't know who it's for, but the more I think about it, the more I like it, because as we've talked, I feel like it matters and that people should fucking watch this.
Just make sure you're in a good mood when you watch it.
I know, right?
Don't start low.
Okay, so I'm now going to point out, are you superstitious? You have literally just seen technology way beyond comparison in modern society, and that aliens are real and have technology better than you, and that science is unequivocally what is real. Of course you're not superstitious anymore. You can't be superstitious. You've literally seen that science is right and that faith is wrong. What the fuck was that scene?
It was a sex scene.
All right.
Are you feeling superstitious? Yeah, I'm feeling superstitious.
I mean, yes, I get it.
He got her groceries, man. That guy is... Whew.
Fuck this.
I think that's what she was thinking.
A weird thing with that point. That's kind of a part of his character that comes and goes. That, like, when they first find those robots, he calls up, like, the military. And he's like, he has very rational ideas of, like, oh, it's some kind of, like, drone or machine or something. Yeah, something that they've built. And then later, with the childbirth, when he realizes, you know, it's self-replicating thing, he goes on this big spiel about this super advanced technology.
And then he says he's superstitious. What the fuck?
But it almost felt like his turn was going to be like, oh, we've got to sell this. We've got to let the world know. Nothing really happens after that.
I think it's kind of like a subplot that was intended and then they cut, maybe. But the reality is, what really fucking annoys me is he was like super kind of non-religious, sciencey, practical guy until the pretty girl said, are you superstitious? And he was like, well, I've just seen a robot give birth. Yes. It should be the fucking opposite to that. It is literally absolutely reaffirmed everything that you thought was true. Fucking hell.
Mason is just very poorly written. Considering
Yeah, I think so.
virtually every other character has such a clear, like, misery. Like, there's a real tragedy behind every other character in the house. Mason, you never nail down what it is. You never nail down who he is. Like, there's, as you said, there's that scene where he jumps on the phone and he's calling the government he's calling someone. The government? That's who told me to call you, which I thought was delightful.
That was poor. You're right.
I wanted to know who it was he was talking to. I thought, oh, wow, this guy has connections. And it reminds me that his dad owns an RV
He's a fucking
business.
artist.
That's the thing, isn't it? Like, in Howard the Duck, they've got their scientist friend who's like, science, science, science. And it's funny because he's a bad scientist, and they establish that early. It's a running gag all the way through. He's like, but for the good of science. And they're like, shut up, dude, you don't know science. And it's funny. Whereas Mason, there's no banter. There's no anything. It's whatever they need the extra line to be. Mason's doing it in the corner with his big fluffy hair.
Your point is valid, your point is interesting, and I love that you've brought that to the podcast. But I need to point out that living with me means that you have watched Howard the Duck. Did you know that Howard the Duck, the actor who played Howard, is the actor that played Chucky?
Really? Oh, there we go. See, you were grooming me.
I am not grooming him. I want to make it explicit that I'm not doing that on the podcast.
I'm glad that we got that context because I didn't show it, but like just the casualness of you just like, oh yeah, it's like Howard the Duck. Like, you sound like a maniac. Like, who references Howard the Duck that casually? It's like that movie everyone's seen.
Like I said, we've just been living together. We didn't have internet for a few weeks. I wasn't allowed to watch any of the Chucky movies.
Everyone I know has seen Howard the Duck because of me.
I've seen it twice in the last week.
That's because we didn't have internet.
No, it's because it's an excellent movie and I don't know why it has so much heat. I love that film. It's in my top 10. But...
Right, so the Howard the Duck is going to come up to my next point. Howard the Duck is supposed to be a kid's film and it starts with duck tits. And where the fuck did the tits come from in this film? Suddenly, the positive character, the man who was supposed to be the man that helped Marissa to get away from her boyfriend that treats her like shit, without her permission, draws pictures of her titties in a kid's film!
And the non-consensual nature is a proper, Chad, punch on the elbow.
You picked a much better, funnier segue into that. But, like, that was going to be my next point. Like, Mason is kind of a maniac.
Why the fuck did you draw the woman's tits? You were being the good guy, and you were getting on, and you were building this relationship. Suddenly tits.
Very 80s kind of idea of romance.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can tell that it's the same people that works on the Titanic that are working on this film.
It was only the fucking musician, unfortunately, but yes.
Well, now we understand his real influence. He's just there.
At least Kate Winslet asks. Like, Marissa Hare didn't ask for that. And then the way it's written, she's just like,
I still can't understand if it was a clever throwback or just poor writing that at the start of the film when his girlfriend is moving out, she's like, you're an artist and you never even drew me naked.
Oh, that's probably it.
I feel, but I don't know what the point was trying to say. Like, is this wholesome relationship involving nudity with art?
I guess that's his idea, like, that's a romantic gesture. But, so then he did it with Marissa. I guess that's the point.
I imagine what your tits look like. So to put them into a painting of you. I'm romantic, yo. No, Devon!
Yes, no, I'm saying that's what the film is saying. That's the thing, Mason is weird in this film. Because the other big maniac moment was when her boyfriend comes back. He goes out and gets lashed.
Yeah.
And then when he comes back, he kicks her door in and then steals his paintings back. But that doesn't seem like that's his idea to steal his paintings back. He comes in trying to find her, and it's like, well, what were you planning to do?
I just find that Mason almost feels like not only is he irrelevant, he's actively a problem in a lot of ways. Cut that character out, it would be a tighter film, and like you said, Priscilla, that it would be better if Carlos was the romantic lead for Marissa.
Mason is not a hero in any way.
No, he's Belen,
That's
actually.
to draw upon a couple of points we've made. And this is an 80s film. I don't think it's over the top, but I do think we have some stereotypes going on here. Marissa is maybe Spanish or something.
I don't think she's offensively stereotypical.
No, I don't think anyone here. I don't think anyone here is over offensive. But I mean, like that scene before, like, oh, she believes it's superstition. She believes it must be God.
Well, they also ask her to speak Spanish.
She is like Spanish, yeah. So she's more open to like superstition. You've got Harry, who is like the magical black man.
Definitely magical black man. I agree.
Frequently throughout the entire film, he's just there.
He's John
solve
Coffey.
things. Yeah, he just solves things out of nowhere. Carlos, again, not offensively so, but he is the bad Hispanic guy, the gang member.
He's like a young Danny Trejo.
Yeah, and then back to Mason, he's just the annoying white guy. He doesn't have any real problems because, I know he's white. He's just privileged.
Is he the guy who played the villain in Die Hard?
I don't think he is, but I did like your reference. He does remind me of him, yeah.
That was fucking Snape.
Yes, I know.
No, I thought you meant the annoying guy. What's his name? Not the bad guy.
Not Alan Rickman.
What are you talking about?
I thought you meant the guy who gets killed. The friend, the annoying co-worker.
Did you mean Alan Rickman or
No. I mean I do mean the one with the Coke joke where where he asks for cocaine and they give him a can of Coke and they shoot him to prove a point. It's delightful. He's
Also,
he does remind me of him. Yeah.
Also, we are a very LGBTQ podcast and fuck J.K. Rowling, cunt. Moving on.
I was trying to think what the point then was.
I mentioned Snape, and therefore I had to say fuck J.K. Rowling because I don't like referencing her shit because she's a cunt.
Oh, I thought it was just a nice little PSA and I was all here for it. But...
No, I hate her. She's a cunt. Did I mention that J.K. Rowling is a cunt? J.K. Rowling is a cunt.
This part of the podcast was sponsored by...
J.K. Rowling is a cunt. So... my notes weren't subtle at this point in the film. Spaceship guy became a dad and then got killed. This is worse than Bambi, is what I wrote in my fucking notes. There's just no happiness in this film.
But then what's weird is, like the baby, the dad is fine.
And you're right, that's a plot hole. The mum fixes the dad. Why the fuckity fuck didn't she fix the baby? And why didn't she, follow Harry when he stole the baby that she could have potentially resurrected?
But even fixing the dad itself is just a weird plot point.
And it takes seconds. It feels like the moment that he got hit with a fire axe, I genuinely thought he was dead.
Yeah.
And then it was just so quickly resolved. More easily resolved than... the baby. And I'm like, what the fuck?
I don't know if the film would have been strong. I think the film would have been stronger if the dad had remained dead. Because then it would have given...
well, it would have fucking stuck to type of being grim as a fucking fuck biscuit.
But I mean, at the ending, though, when the robots kind of have, that mistrust, and Frank is like, we apologise, it wasn't her fault, we didn't mean it. They've upset the robots.
You're right.
The robots are fine. He came back to life. The robots are fine. If the dad robot had died, then it would have given a bit more weight to, are they going to fuck off?
Yeah. You're right. And I think the moment it happened, it was horrific. I was just devastated. I was like, it's a dad. He's just become a dad. Dad's okay. Yeah. Which was bollocks. Considering how grim the whole film had been so far, that felt like it was resolved too easily. Yeah. Whereas nothing else was resolved as easily as that.
Yeah, you did get that little turn with Mason. It's a very little moment where he's like, "You murdering son of a bitch!" He's really involved with that. Also, there's a lot of swears in this movie. In terms of people say "son of a bitch" and "bastard" for
bitch, bastard, and tits. I'm surprised it's a PG. Actually, it's quite dark. I remember as a kid, I was just kind of when in The Princess Bride, when he said, "My name is Inigo Montoya, you killed my father, you son of a bitch." I remember going, to son of a bitch because I was watching a film where they said bitch in front of my parents. I was like, oh, they said bitch. Whereas this film, in a more maybe subtle way that's not quite as spectacular as that, does say bastard, does say bitch, does have stillborn, does have fucking horrible, horrible themes. But because you son of a bitch was more impactful, I remember that. Whereas this film is a lot darker than The Princess Bride.
Constantly being reminded that the themes in this film are so dark and the language is so real, and we keep saying this is a kid's film, but maybe in the sense of like, you know how you get the nice fun parent that gives you sweets and the other parent that goes sort your life out, like it's character building. That's what this film is. This film gives you teenage pregnancy. It gives you like issues with parents, issues with where you're living, issues of being bullied out by corporations, and it's character building. You get through that film, you learn stuff about life. Yeah. It's why not have a few son of a bitches in there too.
That's the odd thing with Spielberg. People accuse him of being too schmaltzy, but when you look at a lot of his films, like Jaws, Jurassic Park, there's scary, dark stuff in those films. Like when he produced Gremlins, the censors thought Gremlins was so scary they were going to give it an 18. They were going to make it R-rated. And Spielberg literally phoned them up and said, I don't make R-rated films. So they just lowered it down to a 50.
Serious? Is that the story? That's amazing.
He just said, Steven Spielberg doesn't make R-rated films.
I don't think Gremlins is any worse than Child's Play, which is a 15. I don't. But I get where you're coming from. But I also give you... Oh, Spielberg's not that schmaltzy, says Dev. Have you seen AI?
Well, yeah.
Where he added that extra scene that really fucking ruined the whole damn film?
Yeah.
I was so angry.
No, he did get a little schmaltzy
I was
for a while.
so angry.
Maybe that's what Batches Included is for when he's pitching a movie and the producers say, look, the ending is too schmaltzy. I'm not sure if we need another one like this. And he's like, really? So this is what happens when we don't have the schmaltz. And just sits him through Batches Not Included for an hour and a half. And
Do you feel like you sat through it and that it was actually a hard watch? Or
it really hurt me emotionally. It was a tough watch. Like, I'm really glad I did, but it didn't have the wholesome ending that I was hoping for, having been dragged emotionally like it did.
For me, it was the dementia thing that really hurt and really kind of broke my heart, and really, at various points I was genuinely a bit teary. I don't know what this film is for, because it didn't feel like a kid's film to me. But like I said at the very start, as a kid, I didn't get it. And it was just cute spaceships interacting with a granny and a granddad. That was my memory of it.
We've already pitched a couple ideas for this ending. I don't want us to revise every element of it, but let's talk about the ending, how weirdly unresolved it is, because there's a lot of elements to it. We've talked about Carlos and we've talked about Faye and the rebuilding and everything. The weird thing I found was the bad guys don't really pay in this.
No, they don't. They get their building built.
Yeah, like, you've got Carlos, who kind of does a face turn, but he is a bad guy for most of the movie. But all throughout, even the moment near the end, there's a moment where they yell, like, I knew it was this damn Carlos, and then Frank goes, it's not Carlos, this is Lacey's fault. They keep saying, Mr. Lacey. Mr. Lacey wants this.
Lacey does alright. Lacey still builds 90% of what he wants to build.
Absolutely nothing happens to him.
The only baddie that gets punished is the guy who I couldn't tell you his name of, who was the guy in between Carlos and Lacey, the middleman. He gets fired. But I didn't feel like that was...
Who cares?
Yeah, exactly.
And the guy who set the building on fire, never see him again. He just gets away.
No.
I thought the reason he broke his knee was like, he was going to get arrested.
He was faking that though, wasn't he?
Was it?
He ran away.
I don't know. Okay.
Yeah, he got away with it.
He gets up and jogs.
Yeah, he got away with it.
I did notice he ran away, and I was
he totally got away with it. And you didn't see any resolution to him other than he ran away and wasn't heard of again.
It was weird that there was no repercussions when they made such a point to name the villain. They named the villain so many times.
Lacey did not get his comeuppance.
And you even meet him.
Yeah.
I was under the impression we were never going to meet them. I thought it was just going to be Carlos as the representative. He was going to lose interest and there was going to be a happy ending. But the fact that Mr. Lacey turned up, I thought we're going to get Home Alone on this. Like him and his goons are going to get done. And what happens? He gets literally everything that he wants.
Yep.
Yeah, he talked about, like, interest rates or something. Because, like, a part of the building didn't get built. But, like, you see at the end, it's like a city now.
Yeah.
He profited from it. Those 2 buildings are probably filled with businesses.
And I feel like Up did it so much better. Have you seen Up, the Disney Pixar film?
I have, yeah. I'm just trying to remember the business angle.
Well, again, it was a very similar ending where everything was built around the fact that his house didn't fucking move.
Right, okay.
And it just felt so much more wholesome, so much more of an achievement for the character in Up when he fought against the man. I didn't get that from this. I just didn't.
Yeah, because Up ended with some wholesome animation where everyone looks rosy, cheeks and happy. Whereas this ended with Faye, a woman who you know is very seriously ill, being happy for about 30 seconds. And I left that movie going, that's not going to last. They've still got all the same issues they had yesterday. And that will never change. Yeah. Having the Twin Towers either side of you will not improve.
Yeah.
They don't, I mean, it's busy. So I imagine they would have good business. But they don't show it. They don't show it packed with, like, business people. Like, oh, they actually really enjoy going here because it's different from the rest of the city. Something like that. But the ending is just so abrupt.
Or even if the corporation did, like, you know, in Gordon's Kitchen Nightmares, when Gordon Ramsay goes in and redoes their front room so it looks fancy for the new patrons. Like, there was nothing like that. There was just, it was just literally the same. They just didn't get evicted. That was the win.
Yeah. I only have one more thing I want to mention before we wrap this up. The whole Bobby is dead thing, and then the angry dementia. The lady getting angry because of her dementia and because of remembering something she didn't want to remember was so fucking bang on. It was scary. It was harrowing. And I'm really glad they did it, actually, because they really did put a lot into the dementia story. It did it a real justice by showing the really black side of dementia, what people have to deal with when you are living with someone with dementia. They didn't shy away from it, and I was stunned that they did that. It was done relatively gently, but acknowledging that people with dementia get angry when they realise things. Fuck a duck. That is grown-up shit. I was really, really impressed. Have either of you got anything else that you wanted to mention that we haven't mentioned?
Well, I think if we're wrapping up here, I do want to talk about the people involved in this. Because we have been saying Spielberg.
Yeah.
He didn't write or direct this film. He just produced it. And so I do want to list some of the credits that these people have done, because some of them are random, and you'll be like, oh, these guys did that. And then some of them are a little bit similar. So the director was Matthew Robbins, and this was probably his big film. I think he directed one or two other ones, but not as memorable as this. But you can see why he was involved, because I think he was involved in when this was going to be a TV episode, because he has writing credits in Jaws and Close Encounters.
Right.
So he was someone in Spielberg's circle when Spielberg trusted him to do this film. He also went on to write some pretty good films. He started working with Guillermo del Toro after this. So he wrote like Mimic and Crimson Peak. So he's written a few
Mimic!
films.
I haven't seen that film for so long.
Now I'm beginning to understand why Del Toro's work is so dark all the time.
Not wrong.
So there are a bunch of writers on this. So two of the writers who are a writing team, Brent Maddock and SS at Wilson, they did Short Circuit, another kind of robot film.
Love Short Circuit!
Another weird little robot film.
Genuinely wish we'd watched Short Circuit more than this, because that is a
fun.
lot more fun. Yeah.
A lot more fun, that one. They did Tremors.
I love Tremors.
Wow.
Which again is that kind of mix between not quite a kid's film, not quite an adult film. But that film is a lot tighter. So that film works. They then went on to do Wild Wild West. which is a messy film, but I enjoy it.
I don't know, cowboys versus robots is kind of cool.
More robots, yeah.
Yeah.
And then, the big guy that stood out was Brad Bird. I think this was his first screenwriting credit.
Yeah.
Like, this was his big break, but then he went on to big things. He did Incredibles. I believe he wrote and directed Incredibles. He wrote and directed Ratatouille. He did,
I love Ratatouille.
He did...
That is not as bleak as this.
He did that Tomorrowland. He did a few big Disney ones.
Cool.
But this is the thing. He did another film about a metal-eating, self-repairing good robot.
Go on.
His first directing credit was The Iron Giant.
Right, but the Iron Giant is based on Iron Man, which is very, very, very old. Pre this, it's written by Ted Hughes.
True, yeah. But what I mean is, his first real credit was on this film, and The Iron Giant, like, it's a very different story. I think it's what we expected, Batteries Not Included, was going to be.
Yeah.
A robot and a kid, and they get onto in a big adventure.
Yeah, and I love the Iron Giant. I love the Iron Man that it was built on. Yeah, that doesn't actually surprise me, but cool. Good research, Dev, because I didn't do that.
It does surprise me there were so many writers on it, though, considering how many loose ends there are in the film, considering how punchy it doesn't feel.
Ha!
I'm saying that in the nicest way, but I heard a while back that when the Marvel studios get their scripts done, they'll send it through various teams of writers. So you'll have one team will write the script, and the next team will add the humour, and then the next team will go, God, that is bad jokes, and take half the humour out. Like, it goes through these phases where different writers get their teeth into it, and they all get to critique and add into it. It feels like this film, they got the 5 or 6 writers and they said, right, for each one of you, write the most depressing story you can think, just as a premise. And they took those 6 premises and they just went, that's it. We don't need any resolution for any of it. We're just going to move it along enough and have a few robots turn up just to fill the time. But essentially, this is what it's like living in the middle of a big city. It is broken. It is hard. And it still hurts me. You told me this was going to be a kid's film.
I know. I'm so sorry.
You can kind of see or imagine it coming together. Because, as I say, this was a TV episode.
Yeah.
That Spielberg, he got it in his head, no, this has to be a movie. And you can sense that process of him bringing in new writers to be like, okay, how do we actually turn this into a full movie?
Well, what it was missing for me is that it was a household of people. You had 5 people. You had the parents, you had the uncle, and you had the young couple. And all they needed to do was bring that household together in the final scene. But it really frustrated me that we never got the birth of the child or never read any resolution on what's happening.
Oh yeah, the child. We never saw Marissa give birth.
And they really should have done, because the fucking robots gave birth. It should have been a parallel type situation.
I sincerely hope it wasn't a parallel situation. Because
oh shit, good point, well made.
But that was it. It's been such a grim movie. That would have been such a genuinely heartwarming, happy ending to go, Faye lost her son, why not bring a new son into the household, have a happy ending with that? It could have been so wholesome, but instead they went, the robots fixed the house, but capitalism still reigns supreme.
Yeah.
Run credits.
Yeah.
Like the writing credits, the people who did Tremors. That's an eclectic group of different people.
Yeah.
And that movie brings them all together.
Do you know what? There's so much good about this film. The depiction of dementia is flawless. It just could have done with a couple of script edits to do exactly what you just said, Priscilla.
It's the... How does the phrase go, the idiom? The sum whole of the parts? What's the... How do those words go?
Things are better when you put everything together. Is that it?
Not that, but yes.
No, the opposite, kinda. The parts of this movie are good, but it doesn't come together in the end.
Yeah, that's fair. That is fair.
Yeah.
So we have got some listener feedback on Batteries Not Included. I'm just going to read what we've got. First up was Cam, who was our co-host for our episode on non-binary representation in Chucky. And they said, I watched it at summer camp as a kid. It's a classic that I can't remember at all. I'll enjoy a rewatch. To which I can only respond, I'm so sorry, Cam. I think It sounds like they're going to have a similar experience to me, whereas I was expecting happy, happy, joy, joy, old lady meets robots, lol, and then everybody wins. And then this. So, Cam, genuinely, I'm sorry. We love you, though.
That has to be, I don't know, the common experience with this film. That kids watched it, but they don't remember half of it. Because, like, what would the kids remember of this film, aside from the robots? Like, they're not going to remember, like, the touching character stories.
No.
And that's what weirded me out. I don't have any quotes with me, but, like, when I looked at Letterboxd, you know, all the top reviews and stuff were like, oh, I loved this when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Like, how? How?
Yeah. It's fascinating that people who grew up in the 80s just didn't spot shit. Cam was at BioQueer. I forgot that. Next up was at StewFaceDown, who is also at StewFaceDown, and they just sent us a quote. Barbie? I'm not your Barbie, lady. Which, they clearly remember it better than we did.
Okay, people are definitely remembering parts of the movie, yeah.
And I think that whole plot line of Bobby, and clearly Carlos wasn't Bobby, is memorable, yet I didn't remember it.
Yeah, I would like to just see or talk to a kid, make a kid watch this for the first time. And see how much they pick up on.
And that's what I do.
I guess
Poor kid.
I guess it depends on how old they are and how aware they are of stuff already in the world.
Yeah.
But, like, how aware are they of what's going on?
Hello, 10-year-old.
And then also,
you know your gran's got dementia. Watch this shit.
But then also, whether or not they get the unresolvedness of it.
Yeah.
Like that person clearly remembers, the whole Bobby thing. But, like, as a kid, were they able to wrap their head around it in a conclusive way? Because it definitely feels to me like once the credits start rolling, it opens up questions to the parents.
I think maybe there is a relevant point in that quote, though, that I think Carlos's face turn is based on the fact that he starts to understand and feels sympathy towards Faye's dementia, and I think that's quite an important part of what his face turn is. So I think that quote, regardless of what the intention was of the reply to the tweet, it kind of really does emphasise how the relationship changes between Faye and Bobby / Carlos.
It's specifically the point when he goes into the cafe and she starts confusing him. It's when he starts to just give her a minute and he starts smiling.
Yeah.
And it's almost as though he thinks it's quite cute.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like they played into it as much as they could have done at that point, but it's funny that you mentioned the Barbie line, because I remember when we ended the film, one of you two, I can't remember which one of you quoted that straight away. It's about the only thing in the movie which really puts a smile on your face in terms of lines.
Yeah, yeah. Next up was David Silverberg, at SilverbergDave, and he's gone with another favourite line. Marissa, maybe this is all a dream. Mason, well, if it's a dream, which one of us is having it? Frank, hey, don't look at me. I stopped dreaming years ago.
Oh, that was so dark!
Wasn't it?
In a film full of dark lines, that just...
David Silverberg could not have watched that as a kid. He watched that last week.
I hope so, because if that's the line that stuck with him from his childhood... Dave, write in. Let us know you're okay.
Yeah, Dave, are you okay? But he's right. That is a great line. It is so brutal that he has literally run out of dreams. The American dream is dead to him. His wife has dementia. He is surviving. He is trying to pretend that his dream is still his dream so that she feels it with what limited capacity she has left. Holy shit.
You just said all of that, and I'm just thinking, I've got a Monday morning shift tomorrow.
You have. And finally, on Facebook, I put the same post out. My friend Ginny Goatner, she replied with, Batteries Not Included was one of my absolute favourite films as a kid. I personally think it still holds up, but I might be biased. Ginny, when did you last see this film? I think it holds up as a intelligent study in dementia. Fully agree. But as a kid's film, I think it's awful. I think it genuinely is such a tough film to watch as a grown-up, that if any children really grasp the concepts that they're engaging with, no, I think it sucks as a kid's film, actually, personally. What about you two?
I think it is useful as a kids film. Like, kid films need to, include stuff that kids are going to encounter in the real world. I think maybe in a way it does work better as a kids film than an adult film because kids remember parts of films. They take away parts of films. They're not as conscious of structure, of pacing, of how a film comes together.
Are you suggesting it's like The Simpsons in as much as there are elements for kids with some very adult themes as well?
Yeah, sort of.
I'll buy that.
But I think it works better for kids because a kid can remember part of this film and then say, yeah, it's a great film. Like, it's almost a little cynical, to be like, as an adult, like, oh, this film doesn't come together. I don't know. If even some of the film works for kids, then I guess that's fine as a kids' film. True.
I don't know. I needed a warmer, fuzzier feeling at the end of that film. I wasn't ready for it going in. It drained me emotionally, and I loved it. I'll say now, I thought it was gorgeous.
Yeah.
And the reason why it drained me is because I'm so emotionally invested with the characters that didn't get a nice millionaire check at the end, which is what I was hoping for them all the way through. I kind of feel like maybe Jenny only had 2 other VHS tapes in the house growing up, because I remember loving like this particular kids film from my youth, but when I got older I went, oh, we just didn't have videos. Like, there's so many other films I could have watched from like my childhood that I just wasn't aware of, because we never had the money to bring the tapes in. And I am very emotionally invested with some dreadful straight-to-VHS releases, which I was under the impression everyone knew about. I was devastated at school when no one else has seen it. But I can imagine Batteries Not Included being one of those films where like your grandparents stick it on every time you come because it's the DVD they bought for the kids. So it gets ingrained in you. But that being said, though, yeah, I think any kid that sees this film, especially a couple of times, and has some of those themes built into the back of their minds, I think it will help them with some coping mechanisms. But it doesn't teach you how to deal with any of the problems it gives you, though.
No, it just makes you more aware.
Yeah.
Yeah, the kids deserved a better conclusion at the end of this film.
Yeah. But I'll be damned if I didn't think it was fucking good.
True. Very, very good film.
Priscilla, where can people find you on the internet?
Oh, anywhere X-rated, darling. No. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at Priscilla QOTR. That's at Priscilla QOTR, as in Queen of the Ring, not as in Couture. It's Priscilla.
And this has been a very long episode. You know where to find Dev, you know where to find me. So we'll sign off with thank you for joining us. We'll see you next month. And until next time, wanna play?
Chucky Vision is a podcast brought to you by the We Made This Network. Follow us on Twitter at CHUCKYVISION. Follow the network on Twitter at WMT_network. Our website is WeMadeThisNetwork.com. The logo was designed by Dev, and the theme tune composed by Dark Fantasy Studios. Wanna play?
You know what's tricky sometimes? Picking who is going to win at the Oscars. You have to get yourself to a cinema to see all the movies, or at least have all the possible streaming services to make sure you don't miss a single one. You have to pay attention to all the precursor award shows to see who's winning so far. The Golden Globes, the BAFTAs, they're the pretty obvious ones. But don't forget the Critics' Choice Awards, or the SAGs, or the DGAs, or the PGAs, or the Eddies, or the Gothams, or the AFI Top 10, or the National Board of Review. Ugh. Exhausting, right? Or you can just join me for Academy Watch on the We Made This Podcast Network. I'm the host, Bo Nicholson, and I've been reading the trends, keeping stats, and seeing as many movies as humanly possible, and I can tell you who the big players will be on the big night. Me and a different guest each week will also be dissecting one of the key movies each season, including giving out personal awards and diving into them thematically. Will Everything Everywhere All at Once remain the frontrunner and win Best Picture, or will a film seize the momentum late in the season to storm home, like Coda did last year? Time will tell, but what I do know is that as it happens, you'll hear it on Academy Watch, wherever you get your podcasts.